Hey there, friends! Welcome back to Second Star to the Left. I'm Michelle, and this is my daughter Billy.
Hi.
And here's where we'll share board game reviews, ramblings, and a few wrong turns along the scenic route. We're here today to give you a little overview and preview of Hidden Leaders, Forgotten Legends, which is from BFF Games. And they have graciously provided this for us. It is a prototype, so you will see some pieces aren't quite what they'll be in the finished product, but we did get a chance to play it, and we want to talk to you about this expansion in its 3 modules, and whether or not you should have a look at it.
You should. Spoilers.
Before we talk about the expansion, we're going to talk a little bit about the base game, because you are going to need the base game to play this. Hidden Leaders is a card game, it's a bluffing game, it's a set collection game, it's a little bit of take that depending on who you play with. So if you play with Billy and I, then it's a little bit of take that. One of our favorite things about this game, just before we even start, and about the expansion as well, is this beautiful, beautiful art by Satoshi Matsura. I adore this style of art, and even more fun are the names they come up with for all of the heroes. It sometimes makes it so that you're playing cards just because of how much you like the names. Or maybe I do, and that's why I don't win.
I feel like that's not the best strategy, but...
When you're playing the base game, you have a board out in front of you that you get to move your faction meeple back and forth on this board, depending on the cards that you play. Each of the players will have a hidden leader.
Ooh.
Yeah. Each of those leaders has 2 factions up in the top corners, and you're going to want one of those factions to win. And the way you do that is by having them in certain positions on the board. For example, if you want the water faction to win, then you want the red and the green factions to be either on the same spot on the board or just one apart at the end of the game. If you want red to win, then you want them to be 2 spaces or more ahead of green. And if you want green to win, well, you want them to be 2 spaces or more ahead of red. All of this sounds pretty simple, except it's kind of not, because in order to get them to move back and forth on the board, you're playing cards out of your hand, and that could give away what leader you have, because the tiebreaker, if say Billy and I both have the same faction on our card, which can happen, is how many of that color you have in front of you. So if I start playing a whole bunch of red cards, well, Billy's going to assume that I'm trying to get the red faction to win.
No, I'm not. I'm going to assume you found a lot of red cards with names you like.
Okay. If Billy was playing with anyone else, she would assume that they maybe had that faction. All of this leads to some really interesting choices in which cards you play and when, and if you maybe bury some in the graveyard to get certain things.
Spooky.
It is spooky. Very appropriate. What would an expansion look like? Glad you asked.
Like this.
It would look like this. We did a video a while back about expansions and whether they're necessary and whether they add to a game or keep you from playing a game. So we are pretty cautious these days about what expansions we add. And for the most part, I'm looking for an expansion that gives me options, that doesn't take up a ton of storage, and that doesn't completely change the feel and the strategy of the game. It just adds more.
It expands the game, one might say.
It's an expansion. That's what this one's going to do. It has 3 modules that lets you mix and match. You can play just one, or you can play multiple, or you could throw them all in.
Different game.
You can play just one module. So the modules are the Guardians, the Artifacts, and Corruption. The Guardian module is going to give you 4 new Hidden Leader cards that you mix 2 into your original deck from the base game and shuffle them all together and deal each player their Hidden Leader. So maybe you're going to get a Guardian, maybe you're not, but it also...
I got one and you didn't because I'm cooler.
I know. I really wanted one because I like the little monster. It also has 20 new Guardian hero cards with that little monster icon on them, and a new Guardian meeple that goes on the board and starts to kind of complicate.
Guard. No.
No. And it starts to kind of complicate the movement on that board, because for the Guardian faction to win, that meeple just has to be ahead of the other factions. It's hard once the Guardian gets ahead to get him to move back. In order to do that, you have to bury a card in the graveyard and get a lucky draw, but it's really fun to use the Guardian powers. So all in all, the Guardian module adds in an extra kind of hidden leader and those extra hero cards in a different faction, that Guardian faction with the cute little monsters on it. The next module is the Corruption module, which gives you this little bag of tokens and sets a way for you to gain these corruption tokens by meeting the conditions on the card. These tokens will be left face down until the end of the game, when you will flip them over and reveal that they may have completely changed the faction that your heroes were to begin with. This makes for really interesting push and pull, because besides being able to change the faction, they can also create a backlash when you try to bury them, a little bit of take that, or they can provide protection if someone tries to interact with one of your cards. So the Corruption module doesn't add any new factions, it just adds this new corruption mechanic that lets you possibly change which faction your heroes are, which might help you bluff, because if you know that one of your heroes is going to change factions and your opponents don't know when they get to the end that you're going to have more red or more green than it looks like on the table, that can be a pretty powerful thing. The last module is the artifacts, which are little superpowers that you get to have in front of you, but they do have limited use. There are 6 artifact cards, which you can either choose or randomly give out to the players, and each of those gets a certain number of little artifact tokens, kind of depending on the strength of that artifact, so that you can use it either 2 or 3 times during the game. I like this being able to use kind of asymmetric powers. And again, this kind of expansion doesn't really change the style of the game, it's just adding an extra level. Let's talk about the 3 modules and what we thought of them and which ones we would be more likely to use. So, let's ask the first question. Would you throw all 3 in when you play?
I might just use 2 more often than not.
Would you swap which 2 you used? Okay. So let's start with this. Which one's your favorite?
Definitely Guardians.
Guardians is my favorite. It will stay mixed in and it will not come out. I don't think it would be hard to teach someone Guardians if you're learning the game. It's an extra faction with just a tiny bit of extra rules overhead. It's simple enough and similar enough to the base game that you could just put them in and leave them in. Which one's your second favorite?
Probably the artifacts, I would say.
The artifacts. Although I think that we always wanted to go for the same artifact, so I think handing them out randomly is more fair. Plus then you get to use all the different ones and mix it up a little bit. I mean, maybe we could, like, depending on how many players there are, deal 2, pick 1. We could house rule it.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, I tend to always want the little deer with the antlers.
Deer with the antlers?
So let's talk about the third module, which is the Corruption module. And this one, I think, changes the flow of the game and the strategy of the game more than the other modules did. And I think for that reason, we didn't gravitate towards this one as much. And I don't think that I'm likely to combine this one with either of the other 2. If I was going to play this, I would probably just play this module. We definitely liked Guardians and Artifacts better.
I think so, yeah.
I think that maybe at different player counts, Corruption would be much different, right? We played it at 2.
We almost always play it 2.
We almost always play everything at 2. So we played it at 2, and I think it just added too much swing for us at 2. It was just, once yours were corrupt, I didn't know if it had, like, protection or was going to be backlash. It made me a little less likely to kind of interact with you. Should people check out...
Yes. Yes.
So, yes, I think so. I think that we absolutely are going to continue to play Hidden Leaders with this expansion.
Absolutely.
It's not the kind of expansion that you have to relearn every time you take out, which I think when we did our video is one of the things we talked about, where sometimes when you haven't played something for a little while, you have to relearn the base game and then relearn an expansion or try to sort it.
Not really the case here.
It really isn't. It feels like it was meant to be part of the game all along.
It's a natural extension of the base game.
Yeah. So I absolutely will always play with Guardians from this point out. I thought, when we got this sent to us, I thought, an expansion sounds really fun. I can't wait to see what they do, but the base game is good all on its own. So I was wondering, given our attempt to not get expansions for everything, if we were going to think this one was one we needed to keep, and it absolutely is one we need to keep. You are going to have to decide for yourself. I will put all of the information for the crowdfunding campaign down in the description below, and you can check it out. It is live now. Again, we want to thank BFF Games for providing this prototype copy so we could share it with you. Tell us what you think. Is this something that you might be interested in?
Yes.
Do you have the base game?
Yes.
If you do, why aren't you playing it right now?
Good question.
Thank you for watching. If you like what you see,
or if you'd like to keep watching until we get one right,
then please like, subscribe, and share. As always, open tables, open minds, and play yourselves.
Bye!
It's hidden leaders and you're hidden.
I'm the leader!
No.
No?
No, not this time. No.
Now you're Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. You're not hidden yet.
I'm hidden now.
No, back your head's still visible. Alright, there you go. Oh no! Where did she go? Where is the leader?
I'm hidden.
She...
Okay, we can't do this because now he's gonna bark.